Loyalty described as, do you care? And I care, and that's why I'm on this show. Comes a time, here we go.
I'm a sucker for O'Teal, man. I saw that same feeling that I have, that would he filled a void that I didn't even know existed.
It feels so good to, as Ben said, to try to do something about an issue as opposed to complaining.
If you can't help, don't hurt.
If we could just all get out there and throw cream puffs at each other, maybe things instead of bullets and angry words, it would be better.
When you stop laughing, you stop living.
There's a worldwide surge in interest in mushrooms.
It was deep, man.
It's not that TM makes your mind quiet down there. It already is. We're just stuck up here. We've lost access.
Jumpin' Jack Flash came out by the Stones. So I thought, all right, perfect, man. I'm gonna drive. And I started driving through the neighborhood, and I got a text from Mick Jagger.
People saying that, what we do is non-essential. Well, playing those few gigs that you saw me at felt pretty essential to me.
It wasn't like they were clapping from here. It was they were clapping from here.
My view of things is that death is the last and best reward for a life well lived.
Like it's the strangest of places if you look at it right,
If you're liking what you're hearing, head on over to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get your bus pass for an extra episode every week.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. That's O'Teal.
And that's Mike, from my perspective.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. My birthday's tomorrow.
I know. Happy early.
Thank you. I'm turning officially old tomorrow.
All in the mind, but you're killing it with the yoga, so you're doing great. Happy early birthday from all of us. Thank you for being so damn cool, buddy. Thanks for being a friend.
Thank you for thinking so and for being my friend.
Of course. It's an honor. We had Kendall Corso, who is one of the founders of Backline, who we've had Zach and Chaim on before. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen. It was one of the Mount Rushmore episodes, I'd say. I love having those guys on. And too. Backline does so many amazing things for the music community, from the state of mental health support, letting everyone know they're not alone. And they're growing leaps and bounds, right?
They really are. I think like she said, the pandemic provided them an opportunity to get a lot of things together. And so when it came time to get back out on the road, I've been really seeing their presence a lot. Dead & Company tour, I was like, wow, Backline, it's really out here. So Lord knows we need it, man. People are still dying. People are still having crises.
People are still going through a lot of stuff alone, and it's nice to see, even if it's a tent backstage at a festival or whatever it may be, just to know that you got someone to turn to, and they're doing great stuff, and it's an honor to have her on to talk, because this is something that it's obviously mental health is something everyone's talking about now, but we're seeing it I think when I don't know how to explain it, but it's we're at the we're watching it take off. It hasn't reached cruising altitude yet, and we're watching the conversation kind of climb through the clouds, and it's good. It's good to be a part of it.
It is good. So. I'm glad that I'm sorry it's an epidemic. Yeah. But if that's what it takes to make us be all right, we got to get to where the rubber meets the road on this thing, because your life matters. Your life matters. It does. It's not meaningless.
Even if it doesn't always seem like it is. Yeah.
Even
Patience.
if it doesn't. And it's hard to get to a place. I've been there when I just did not see a way to where I am at now. I really didn't. If someone could have showed me, I would not have believed it. I would not have trusted it. Because the dark, it was so shrouded. The way to this was so shrouded. I wouldn't have believed it. Yeah. And it takes it's like war, but it's so worth it. And every little bit that you do makes a difference. All those little bits add up.
Yeah.
And if you could just do a little bit, and this and Backline and all the people, the way they've networked together, to try to help people specifically in this business because it has a unique set of circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things she was talking about was like, you got to go to a therapist, and then they got to figure out like what is your life is not structured like anybody else's life. And Mike, you could totally relate to this because of being on the road in comedy, and so it's a natural. They all go together, but it's
and trying
a really
to explain
beautiful thing.
Right. When 90% of the world is, wake up and have your coffee and get in the car and go to work and you're a lot of what we do is the opposite, where it's like there's hours and hours of loneliness and ruminating and wondering and all that. And then you go do your thing and you're not home. And when you're home, you're thinking about that. And when you're that, so there's a lot of that kind of duality that how do you explain that to someone? And,
so even finding someone that gets that
exactly
is this big barrier.
Huge, because I think and that absence of a barrier might be the reason why someone might stick with staying.
It might be alive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Just it's a really beautiful thing what they're doing.
Yeah, and they're awesome.
Kendall's been in there since the inception, and they've got some cool stuff going on. I've known her since she was 6. So I guess Butch Trucks, the drummer for the Allman Brothers, is like her god uncle, I guess you would say, something like that. Yeah. And she was at that gig with Frog Wings,
Yeah.
Yeah, so long ago.
Wild.
I'll send Eric the picture, but it's so great that she landed in this spot. I'm like, wow, how cool is this?
Yeah, totally. And we're recording this a day before your birthday, and we also need to give a huge birthday shout out to Eric. We're recording this a day after his birthday, so
that's right.
Happy birthday, Eric, and thank you for everything. And we're
and
here.
He's going to be on soon.
Yes,
Norrin Radicals.
That's big surprise. That'll be can't wait. That'll be fun. We'll have to break out our dolls.
They're not dolls.
We're here on Osiris, home to so many great podcasts. Go to osirispod.com and check them out. And if you want more of us, go to patreon.com/comes-a-time-pod for a bonus episode each week. Thank you, Kendall, and thank you, Backline. We'll see you soon, everybody.
So what's happening, Kendall, Mrs. Corso? How you doing?
Really good. Living the life in Boulder, Colorado. Been here for a little over a year now after leaving Brooklyn and just soaking in mountain life and fresh air and loving every second of it.
Nice. It looks like it's treating you well.
It is. I smile 90% more in Colorado.
Good. Because that's why we wanted to have you on. Obviously mental health is a huge, huge, huge theme on our podcast.
Of life.
Really. Of life. And getting your smile is like literally everything. If you got to move halfway across the country to do it, so be it. Go to by any means necessary, right?
Everybody benefits.
That's right.
Colorado is a great place. Everybody's smiling out there. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people for sure.
Most people.
The people that you need to see are smiling. Yeah, it's really awesome. Do you miss the city? Do you miss Brooklyn?
No, I really don't. I miss one thing about it: delivery food.
Knew it was going to be food related.
Being able to get any sort of Asian cuisine within 30 minutes from the best of the best is something that I definitely miss. But I'll trade that for twice a week farmers market any day.
Yeah,
totally.
We may all be going that way soon. Back to the old, more local, villages, not so much the crazy cities.
It feels better, and it comes down to how you want to spend your free time. And as somebody who works from home, where work can really consume my life, I want to be able to walk out the front door and be inspired by nature and not have a homeless man throw a beer bottle at me.
Yeah.
Which has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Got to stay away from the 16th Street Mall in Denver then, but otherwise.
Yes, there you gotta keep your eyes peeled for sure. But I'm a big fan of midweek hikes and twice a day long walks with my family. And it's just these are where my priorities are now, and it all comes down to that work-life balance and creating the circumstances to thrive.
Yeah,
have control.
We talk a lot about treating life like gardening, which I was never really into. My wife Jess is super into it, and it's just like, it's long term. You got to constantly weed. You got to prioritize. You got to arrange, and it's nice to see you doing that and figuring it out. And more, I think nature is a huge thing that we've all got to like prioritize. Like somehow, I don't know how you got to do it, but get your feet in the dirt, grass, sand, whatever.
Yeah, it's hard work to figure out what it is that makes you happy, and then to commit to those things as being part of your daily life. I was talking to my husband, Rob, this morning on the walk. I'm like, don't you ever get overwhelmed by all the things we have to do in order to feel sane? And it just is part of it. And as I've gotten older, I've figured out what some of those things are. In the last year, I've found Kundalini yoga practice as something that I have to do in the morning. Actually, my teacher is Jai Dev from the Life Force Academy, and I know he was on your podcast, and he's just the coolest ever. But never did I think I'd be chanting on the floor every morning to attune myself to be able to get on Zooms all day. But it is what it is. I'm here for it.
There's a cost for everything that, our society is all like, pay the cost, pay the cost, pay the cost. And there's like, what about on the other end? So that's where the midlife crisis comes from. If you're not like balancing that out daily, all those Zooms has a cost. A week of them has a cost. A month of them has a cost. A year of them, and if you're not like balancing it out on the other end, you just break at some point, and not in a good way.
Totally. Go ahead.
No. You made an excellent point earlier too about just kind of like, thinking about the things that we need to do to make us sane and make us happy, but also acknowledging the fact that those things change. You know what I mean? Like the things that made us happy 10 years ago, or there was a period in my life where it's like, I couldn't have imagined staying home on a weekend night. Like I had to have been out either drinking or performing, and now it's like, fine. It's 9:30. I'm going to bed. Like it's an interesting thing, like to be able to kind of like let go or realize that like the only constants change. And that's a hard thing, I think, as humans.
So let me ask you, did that acknowledgement for you happen before the pandemic, or is that a realization that you've had after having time off from those things?
Performing wise, work wise, pandemic taught me that. But the doing stand-up and doing work taught me that about partying. Like, so everything the new thing teaches me about the last thing and how I didn't need it. Do you know what I mean? So there was a time where it's like, I always had one foot out the door. So it's kind of like if I could be out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday with my friends or out going to concerts, it had to be all of everything. And then once I started doing shows, my free time became the most valuable thing, and then the pandemic kind of taught me like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be all day, every day, that one thing. You know what I mean? So now it's more whatever, quieter time or peaceful time and there's that balance, like Oteil said, of course, you got to do both. But yeah, each thing has taught me how I don't necessarily need the thing I thought I needed, which is weird, very weird.
Yeah. It's been a reckoning, I think, for a lot of different people in their personal and professional lives. I think a lot of whatever industry you're in, you have to consider, why should these people come and work here or entertain or whatever job it is that they're going to do. There's got to be a lot more partnership going into it to make sure that humans are treated like humans, which is crazy. I'm helping to build a benefits program for a company right now. And I'm like, how can we relay that we care about you in these bullet points without it just being, show up during these times and you're expected to hit these criteria and this and that. And when you're living that way for so long, it's really easy for that to become part of your identity. And I've struggled with that my whole life. Working in the music industry was, oh, that's just who I am. And I need to do this 24/7, and I need to go to all the shows and be there and say hello to all the people and stay late every time. And then, the pandemic happens. We're all like, what the fuck? I don't have to do any of that shit. I don't want to do any of that shit. So
yeah.
See you before the show, maybe.
Yeah. Has the pandemic created like an avalanche for backline? Because people are like, seems to me, just macro, like losing it. I know the podcast kept us sane.
Yeah.
Barely.
And our loved ones.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting, like just what we were talking about. There's two ends of the spectrum and what we've seen at Backline. And the first spectrum was when the pandemic hit. So it was separating the person from their profession. Yeah. And they were living in that constant on the road, away from the family, away from routine, go, go, go. Somebody else is managing your schedule. And that was their life, to go from there to nothing, to having to take care of yourself, to come back to your family, realize who you're married to, realize who you are away from the drugs and alcohol. There was a huge reckoning in separating the person from the profession. And we had an avalanche of people then. And now, we'll call it 2 years later, as people are going back out on the road, we're seeing it spike again. This isn't the life I want to return to. Do I still feel passionate about this career as I once did? The inspiration comes at different times now. So it's crazy.
It's beautiful though, because we don't, if you never get off the hamster wheel, you never have a chance to A-B anything. There's only A. Mm-hmm. And so then A becomes you. The road is me. The job is me. The hustle is me. The blah, blah, blah. And then you get home and you see what you've been missing and you're like, hey, is that amount of money and time and toll enough to miss this? Mm-hmm. And now you can see, because the answer is like, no, it's not actually,
Right.
Well,
in some cases,
Right. Yeah. And Kendall, I'd like to follow that with a question for there's clearly a broad, there's a spectrum of, there's the folks who can afford to maybe not go on the road as much, but then there's a massive percentage that live and die by each gig. Mm-hmm. So for folks like that, I mean, and I put myself in that category with comedy, you know what I mean? So what do you think, do you see folks in different periods of their careers dealing with this in different, frames of mind?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Depending on what your role is in the music industry, it's hard to see how it applies to other areas of the world. So if you're tour hands and you are setting up stages, what do you put on your resume to go get a job at Lowe's? It's these interesting things that are not necessarily transferable into the real world, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Some people, we have seen a lot of people leave the music industry because it's just not sustainable for them. Unfortunately, the music industry isn't really set up to be sustainable. Not a lot of people have health insurance or benefits packages or reasons to work 24/7 as we're expected to in some of the desk jobs. So they've left and joined the travel industry or something that might also seem fun. But for these touring professionals, it's definitely been kind of a reality check and an identity crisis of who am I outside of this role that I've been for 20 years on the road? And how do I explain to my family how the pandemic has impacted my industry differently than others, and why I might not have a big savings account to keep me afloat during this time? There's a lot of factors that have made the last couple of years even more challenging on these people, personally and professionally, that makes it really hard to show up to work the next day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a tough place to be, man.
Well, and because for folks who, I like to, living your dream's a nightmare a lot of the time. I mean, it really is. And it's until it becomes the dream that and when you sink your whole self into, there's a point where you kind of have to say, like, now's where I go for it when you're starting. And when you're like, maybe let go of that straight job or day job or whatever you want to call it, and do it full time and really commit to the dream. And then for Earth to kind of e-brake it. And like you're saying, like to have that identity crisis of like, we all aged 2 years or more. I mean, we put a lot of stress on ourselves. It was like, I kind of envision all of us like we're in park, but we're gassing it and the tires are just spinning for 24 months. Boy. It's not like we were put in park in a garage in nice, cool, we were out in the elements, some of us, like emotionally and whatever. So yeah, it's a very real thing that, you just hit the nail on the head for a lot of people. And it's terrifying. Because
I think about all the people that had just crossed that point like early in their career, and they're like, all right, I'm going for it. All my eggs in this one basket, and then blam. Like I know some people have just like literally just moved to New York, and then everything shut down. It's like,
yeah.
One guy actually liked it because his makeup is that way. But, it's super hard
yeah.
Yeah,
it's
but
tough.
I do think that for all the reasons we just discussed, the pandemic was the worst thing to happen to the music business. But people have been gardening and figuring out, we've had 2 years now to figure out that Kundalini helps us in the morning or that going on daily walks is important for sleeping better at night.
Yeah.
And our goal as Backline over the last 2 years has really been to meet the industry where they are, which is at home. So we started support groups that meet a couple times a week for people to have these conversations of, my parents don't understand or my spouse doesn't understand why I'm in this position, but you do. Yeah. Let's talk about it. It feels so good to be seen and understood. And then the other thing that we did over the last 2 years that I'm really proud of is wellness partnerships. So I've been creating partnerships with different apps like meditation apps, yoga apps, breathwork apps to provide free entry points to these resources for people that might not have the financial, support to try something like that new. And breaking down those financial barriers and saying, commit 5 days or 5 minutes a day to changing how you breathe or focusing on the mind or whatever it is. These small shifts wouldn't have been possible 2 years ago when people were on the road and introducing these new ideas. So I think a lot of people are learning about themselves, and Backline has tried to spoon feed and hand hold that process for a lot of people that are otherwise just kind of lost.
Those things make such a huge difference too, because I know two people that started TM recently, like over the pandemic, really kind of more when it was starting to open back up. They were like, it's too soon for me. and they were losing their minds. And the TM helped them so like the apps that you're talking about, that kind of stuff is big. I mean, recovering 15% more of your sleep a night adds up to it's big. If you can do something like just spare the however many minutes for a meditation app.
Definitely.
That point that Oteil made about it's too fast, opening back up, right? I'd like to actually ask you about the re-entry. It seems that that's quite difficult for a lot of folks are coming out of this, not the person they were when they came into it, right? So do you find that there's any type of for folks that are listening or that are maybe having trouble with maybe the social anxiety that came with, 2 years of being alone back to now having to get back out there? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a clinician, but my personal advice is always about boundaries, figuring out what situations you're comfortable with and then doing your best to communicate them to the people in your tribe so that everyone's supporting of each other. Because I think everyone's on a different path or a different journey in where their comfort zone is in that reentry. For people working in the live event space, it had to happen so fast where one day you're alone in your apartment for 2 years and then the next day you're in an arena risking your life and the health of everyone around you. Yep. And then one person gets it, Oteil, you're kind of just left behind. You can't come near us. Go quarantine in a hotel. We'll see you when you're done. And it's
Bob said, "Oh, it's the leopard bus." I was like, "Wow!" Just like that. Wow.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have it.
Yeah.
We just got exposed by a pilot, so we might have it, and we became the leopard bus. I was like, he's joking.
But there's no event. But there's no event without you guys on that bus. That's the thing that's so crazy.
And we had to be isolated. Thank God we had 4 days off, and they cut us off. That's when I broke down and was crying in my oatmeal, because we were already isolated, and then we really isolated. And thank God we had those 4 days off. But it was
it makes you feel like shit. I mean,
yeah.
It really is interesting the way that this whole it changed everything. It totally
did.
I
mean, musicians wanted to. It's we could get back to work. Everybody in the music industry. Yeah, you want the fast start. It's all right, cut the valve on. Let's drink some water. But then we're just all in the unknown. And I don't think we prepare for that very well as a society for just curveballs. Everything is about curating security, insurance, this, that. It's not, it doesn't cultivate flexibility. I guess that's where backline comes in,
Well, and that's what makes working in the music industry so challenging is it's kind of nothing. It's always been nothing but curveballs. And when you're traveling with 15 people and everything that they've got in their luggage with them, it's a lot of navigating personally, throwing in, a health crisis that could derail 60,000 tickets or all of the jobs that went into producing it. It's fucked up. It's crazy pressure. It's crazy. It's more than any one person should ever have to handle, and that's what people are handling. And I think that people are getting better at just letting it roll because that's all that you can do. But that wasn't the mentality pre-pandemic. I mean, it was life or death. The show's going on no matter what you have to do to make it so. And there's just a lot more conversation around mental health in the business right now, where I think people can be more open about what they need in order to be successful in their role.
Do you find that, because I'm only finding this watching MMA. That's the only sport I follow is the fights. And people are more taking they're like calling their own mental health. They're like owning it. Like, yeah, I'm not ready to do this. And like some people are be like, oh, you're full of it. You're just trying to get out of doing what you got to do, you know? And I'm like, I hope that's not happening in other areas where people are like saying, hey, I'm not really at full capacity or not even at whatever capacity to be able to do this. I hope that's not happening in other businesses. Are you
I don't think so. I mean, if you think about the typical music industry professional, they're like pretty hard-headed and like they're not going to open up. They're not going to like open up their heart unless it's really hard for them to do so. So I think that if people are raising their hands, it's because they finally feel safe to do so. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the Black Pumas, but they just canceled the rest of their tour and said they don't know when they'll be performing again. And kind of suggesting that it has to do with, you know, returning back to their live music schedule and wanting to reassess what that looks like.
Yeah, they might have come in, done too much too fast. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not ready.
Right.
You know?
And well, then you think about how most bands make money is through touring.
Yeah, especially now when there's so much free streaming and so much, you know, access to albums and stuff like that too. But the
people
thing
are trying to make up for 2 years of not being able to tour.
Right. And let's take hypothetical, you know, that let's say that situation with them, you know, calling their tour. I'm sure that wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. There was probably nights of laying awake or hours and hours of meetings going, well, the world's not going to wait for us. Like there's another band. That's the thing with performance is the pressure of knowing there's a line 20 miles long behind you of people who want that spot. And either keeping up with the trends or keeping up with the algorithms or keeping up with the pace or step aside and let the world move. And that's a hard thing for a performer to say, like, I feel like I'm slipping, but I'm scared to, you know, get out of the you know.
The sad part is you only realize it with age that, like, the best thing for you to do is go, yeah, let that guy have it. Because if I burn out, I'm looking farther ahead. Yep. I want to be here for down there. And if I burn out here, I'm not going to make it to there. So I'll let this dude have it. And the reality is, if that guy or girl doesn't prioritize their own health, they're going to burn out and you're going to go right past them because you took the break and were able to shoot farther.
Yeah.
But nobody tells you that.
Nobody.
And your own inner critic isn't going to tell you that if you're too young, you know.
100%. I mean, it all comes back to boundaries and showing up where you feel comfortable.
It's just what you started with.
Jonah Hill, for example, just said a couple of days ago that he no longer wants to talk about or promote what's coming up next for him because it causes him too much anxiety. And he'd rather just show up, perform, act, do what he is there to do and not, you know, be part of the press circuit anymore. If that's what he wants to do.
But that's in your contract.
Right.
Big time. So you got to have some leverage to even do that, you know, but good for him. Like, you know, because you see it, man, these press things, I watch them again with MMA fighters. They're, you know, when you're training for a fight, it's one thing to have to do all the press stuff. If you're a big star, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It's like two jobs, and that other one doesn't give you back what acting gives you back, or playing music gives you back, or fighting gives you back, or whatever.
No, it only takes away.
It only takes, and who it gives to is, you know, the big corporation or whatever. Unless you're doing it all for doing it all by yourself, and all the money's coming back to you. But you know, like, it doesn't. I remember Beyonce. I was watching this. I think it was a documentary on her, and she was like, decided to take a break. And it was such a revelation to her that she could. And in that break, she was like, you know, why can't I have an intro to a song? I was like, wow, you can't have an intro to a song anymore? I'm so disconnected. And she just watching that process of her having these realizations, but it never would have happened had she not stopped and just said, stop, everything stop. You can never get off of it.
Yeah.
And that press thing is like how many, if you're shooting 5 movies, you're always doing a press thing. You're always shooting and you're always, when do you get time to...
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
When do you get your life back? I mean, all that is putting out energy in the world that doesn't come back to you.
Right.
And probably doing blow to try to just maintain it, because you can't naturally do that. Right?
Right.
Now the real vampire sucking is starting.
Well, or taking pills,
like,
or taking pills to numb yourself through it, which is sometimes.
Then you're like in the hospital or rehab or jail or dead.
Well,
like
yeah,
that's
And that's when you start saying things that people are critiquing online, and then you're getting lost in that, and it's just impossible to be an authentic person when you're in the spotlight.
Yeah, I think that's what probably happened to Kanye, just like living a reality show. Like, it never stops. Now there's no actual life. I mean, I can't critique his life, so I should shut up. I'm just saying what the fame thing, it's weird.
I remember reading books about Garcia, right? And how it got to that point where he was a deity to the Deadheads, and people trying to jump the walls of the hotel and get in and see, and he literally couldn't leave the 4 walls of the safest place outside of his hotel or a jet was the stage. And that was it, or a needle, or the end of a needle, you know what I mean, or whatever. So it's like that whole thing.
And I'm here to tell you, you can't live on stage, a bus, a jet, and a hotel room. No. It's not living. It's just not, man.
And not everybody has a family that performs. A large amount of people only know the hotel, the bus, the road. And I mean, there are the performers who... There's the people starting out, and there's the super famous people, but a massive chunk in the middle gets lost in the shuffle. You know? Look up any club that's whatever size, all performance art. There's a massive anonymous chunk in the middle that is hanging on, literally just hanging on because there's a fear of not hanging on. Like,
and there's no guidebook either.
No.
Other than to keep doing it.
a lot of times the guidebook is the cautionary tales that you see a year or a decade or two ahead of you. And you go, shit, I don't want to be that. Or someone that's like, maybe you latch on to, or that tries to help you or something. But it's how. That's what backline is to me. It's the guidebook. It's like, okay, collectively we can get together and pull these experiences together and pull our knowledge together and go, well, here's what not to do.
Right.
It's the truth. I mean,
well, a big part of our role here is to validate that the challenges and the struggles that you're experiencing as a music industry professional are very real. And they are things that a lot of people don't understand. And that's why we've built a clinical network in all 50 states of therapists that have either worked in the music business, have been related to somebody in the music business, or just understand it peripherally in some way, to be able to guide that person through their journey without having to ask, what's it like going on tour in Europe, or the stresses of an album release cycle. And there's a lot of horror stories out there too of doctors crossing the line and asking for tickets.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike, and today's show is sponsored by Sunset Lake CBD, a Vermont hemp farm crafting affordable CBD products designed to help with stress and sleep without breaking the bank.
Sunset Lake CBD is a majority employee-owned hemp farm located just outside of one of our favorite places, Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake was a dairy farm producing milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We had them on the podcast. In 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD.
And Sunset Lake CBD crafts products with hemp grown on their family farm and ships them directly to the customer, cutting out all the cost associated with getting on the shelves at stores. They have CBD products for every occasion and offer tinctures, salves, edibles, coffee, smokables, and even for that anxious dog of yours, they have pet products.
Ooh, I need to get some for my dog that's barking all the time. But I'll tell you this, I use these. The Sour Bears.
So good.
They are CBD gummies. I literally, no joke, I take these every night. They help me sleep. And it's almost bedtime.
Yep. And I still, as said it before, I'll say it again. You go to a long show, you come home, my 42-year-old ankles are not what they used to be. And I rub that salve all over them and put them up, enjoy a nice cocktail, and just let it ooze right into those sore bones. And you know what, folks? All you Comes a Time fans, if you check them out at sunsetlakecbd.com and use promo code TIME, T-I-M-E, you'll get 20% off all products. That's sunsetlakecbd.com. Use promo code TIME, 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown. Thank you.
Get you some.
Man, Jeff Tweedy in his book told a story, and on a great podcast, The Hilarious World of Depression, he talks about how he had a doctor who was convincing him to take him on the road and was like prescribing opiates as an antidepressant and was like, you need to, bring me on the road with you and whatever. And finally, Jeff's like, no, it's in his book. It's an amazingly honest autobiography. It's called Let's Get Going So We Can Get Back Sooner or something like that. I'm ruining I'll look it up right now.
I mean, I get
but
it.
The doctors are like, yeah, you should take me on the road with you. And it's like, what?
There's so many people that I wouldn't be surprised at all just because of Mayor, right? Be like, man, if I get out there, I'll probably hang with Dave Chappelle. I'll probably hang with that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm just like, wow, okay,
Let's Go So We Can Get Back is the name of Tweedy's book, but amazing stuff. Yeah. But
I mean, you think we laugh, but I'm sure you see it, You see it.
Oh,
Kendall.
yeah.
It's like, wow,
I mean,
are you kidding me?
I know Greg Allman has some stories too.
Oh, boy.
And that's what's so important about building a clinical network that we've personally vetted and that understands so that somebody can sit down and just start with their healing journey and not have to give 3 sessions of background information to catch that therapist up in what it means to be working on the road and why it's not glamorous.
It's
as if you have to
frustrating.
explain that.
Yeah. And it's funny when a therapist thinks that every gig is like the $1 million gig, and it's like, no, that's not, I go like, yeah, I'm not, go on the road as much, whatever. And like, well, you got this and you got that. And it's like, yeah, you don't understand. You don't have a single idea.
Right. That's not what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. You're like, I'm paying for this?
Yeah, seriously. It's unbelievable. A question I'd like to ask you, because I know that there's been some, I've heard some recent talk about it, and it's something I'm very interested in, is the isolation aspect of the, touring life and the performance life, and whether you're in, set up production or a performer, there is that large part of like, you may be around other humans, but are you isolated? Like, are you alone? There's a difference between being lonely and being alone. And I'm wondering, like, is that something that comes up quite a bit, that like some people just feel like they're dealing with everything by themselves?
I'm back.
Did you miss that whole? Okay.
Yes. Can you just redo that question?
Yeah, we could edit, right? Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask was about like the aspect of isolation. There's a difference between being lonely and being alone. And when you're on the road, sometimes, even if you're around other people, you may have that thought of like, I'm kind of going through, nobody understands, I'm going through this by myself, things like that. Is that something that you find, you see quite a bit with the folks that are?
Yeah, the third biggest reason that people come through Backline is because they couldn't find care on their own from people that understood. So I think that's a really big part of it. And as far as the isolation goes, I mean, using a concert as an example, you're going from the highest high of receiving the energy of thousands of people to the lowest low of being by yourself in a hotel room or in a bunk. And that's whiplash. That's emotional whiplash.
Yeah,
it's like
such
PTSD
a great
somehow.
term. God, I never thought of it like that. It is.
And
totally is.
And that's for your nervous system.
Yeah.
It really burns you to the core. And if you're doing that every day or every other day, it's just up, down, up, down. It's not healthy to the point where your body doesn't know which mode to start going. So that starts to affect your immune system, your emotional balance, your sleep schedule. All of it is
sanity,
detrimentally affected by this emotional whiplash of performing. And you don't just have to be the performer to experience this. I mean, setting up and breaking down like huge, high energy tasks that, are super time sensitive and people are screaming and
the pressure
it's just
you have.
huge pressure. So I think that, again, a lot of people don't understand that and think about the whole picture of what it means to be in the live event space. And that lack of understanding has created over time a lack of resources that meet those very unique needs, which is why we built Backline, to validate and provide resources that are specific to you, no matter what role you're in, no matter where you are in your journey, no matter what state you're in. There are resources and organizations out there that have been created to support that exact person.
It's so crazy because I think about just that one part is so huge. The emotional whiplash of just going from the performance to the isolation. And that's just one thing.
Well, exactly. So if that's the baseline of your life, when are you finding time to go to a doctor or find a therapist or take care of yourself? Right? I mean, when are you really having the emotional courage or whatever it's going to take to pick up the phone and get the help you need? You're exhausted. Your baseline is zero. And there used to not really be people advocating for those parts of your personal life that needed to be maintained while you're on the road. Again, that's why we built our collection of resources is really just Backline's just a place to go to find out what other help is out there for you, because it takes a lot of time to research for an organization that can help you, see if you're qualified, get on the phone. Like
it's impossible.
It's a lot.
It's impossible when you're not on the road. When you're just like trying to navigate an insurance company or local coverage or who's, and everybody's booked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely it's needed. Backline is needed for life, not just musicians and their lives, or, like it's true. Like there's a lot of people will go like how many people quit a diet? Right. And that's entirely in your hands. You go to the store, you buy the food you're going to eat, you eat when you're supposed to, whatever. And if you mess it up once, you're like, next year after the Super Bowl, I'll start over or whatever.
Right.
Think about how easy it is to quit mental health when it's so hard to figure out and navigate.
Started in the first place.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
You know what I love too is, and I've started to get onto it because the business does this. It's very seductive. And it's like, well, this gig will be like a vacation, like you could bring your kids. And I'm like, okay, so that'll be a vacation if I can bring my kids and we can have this, and then I don't have to gig.
Right.
Now it's me sandwich. You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, but didn't you just get back from so and so. It's like, yeah, but I was at work. Like,
Yeah, you got that hanging over your head all day.
Yeah, my kids were crawling all over me while I'm trying to learn this song or whatever. Like
totally.
So I have to be careful. Like, no, this time is this time, and this time is this time. You could say it's whatever, but that's not also a vacation. Like Jam Cruise is not a vacation. I love Jam Cruise, but I'll work. Like 3 times harder than I normally work because I'm like sitting with this person. Oh, you're going somewhere else. They're like, hey, can you come over here? And so it's like, yeah.
It's a different type of work than just showing up and performing on a stage. That barrier is lifted, and now the masses are upon you for your insight on life.
Yeah, and which is cool, but as long as you're able to like you said, set your boundaries. Because otherwise, then I'm trying to keep up with people that are a lot younger than me. They got me on that. Then they're on drugs because they're not going to go to sleep, And I'm like, whoa, you lap me twice, like I get burnt out like that. Just used up. But it's fun, I mean, festivals are like that too. It could be, I'm not trying to single out Jam Cruise. Love Jam Cruise. I'm doing it next year. Can't wait. It's been a while for me. But, I'm just saying you have to be aware, when it's life and death, then you go, okay, so this vacation time, this is not quotation mark vacation. This is I'm checking out vacation time. And that doesn't count for that. That's still a gig. Mm-hmm. Playing in the sand with Dead and Company. I'm sorry, it's not a vacation. It's a vacation for my kids and my wife. Not for, I get to decompress after I go home from playing in the sand. That's my rant for the day.
No, I mean, you bring up a good point though, that in your position, it can be a 24/7 thing unless you establish those boundaries to not let it be.
Yeah, you get used up fast. It's not anyone else's fault. I'm not saying there's some malintention. It's
of course not. But it is about
George
preserving.
Porter can do it. He's older than me.
But it is about preserving your energy. And I think that no matter what position you're in, you need to identify how to preserve your own energy so that you can perform when the time comes to do that.
Yeah, that's important because there are those we've had discussions too about if it's the hours leading up to, say you're really only working 90 minutes to 2 or 3 hours, whatever, a night, there's still 22 hours.
Yeah.
And the 5 hours before the gig is you're an animal in a cage. You're just pacing the room. Should I shower again? Do I really want to wear that shirt? Did I call home? Let me lay down. Let me try to meditate. Let me do.
I gotta pee again.
Eat now?
For the 13th
I gotta pee again. All that stuff. Should I have caffeine now? And then you just should I, would I, could I, and you're down these things. And then, God forbid, the performance isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go back and ruminate, and then you got to do it all again the next time. I mean, it's funny. There's a gig doing stand up where I do a half hour a night at a casino for a week. And I have 23 and a half hours of nothing, right? And if the weather's shit or whatever, it's just, what do you do, right? You walk around a casino. And then you do the gig.
You don't have a gambling problem.
No, I'll tell you, thank God. I have an eating problem. And there's a Ben & Jerry's inside the casino. So I'm having ice cream for breakfast, But anyway, point being, I would get you're exhausted afterwards. And then you look at it and you're like, how the hell am I tired from having... If someone looked at that and was like, you did nothing for 23 hours of the day, you worked a half hour, it's but you don't know what's working.
The mind was going 100 miles
constant.
an hour.
That guy's running in a hamster wheel, And that's the part that people just don't get.
So let me ask you, as two performers, what have you guys found to bring consistency to your lives when you're touring or in, back-to-back gigs? How do you mediate the monkey brain? How do you use the free time to charge yourself? How do you recharge?
Yeah.
Oteil?
You go, Mike.
Pandemic.
Just a solid 2 years off.
Solid 2 years off. Exercise and meditation and writing and filling my day with other stuff, getting the hell out of the four walls of the hotel room. I think no matter what, I don't care where you are, it's like go for a walk, even if it's crummy out, like go to the movies, go walk around, like, you know, a lot of times comedy clubs are just like in a mall and you just kind of live at the mall and it's like you gotta go. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like maybe the predetermined four walls that you've been provided, you don't need to stay there. Like one thing I did that was pretty fun was I was in DC doing shows and I didn't realize there was a national park like right there, like literally like 20 minutes down the road, like Great Falls National Park or something. I just got lunch and went and sat there. And that was my day before going and doing shows that night, instead of maybe watching a whole season of Sopranos and ordering wings. Do you know what I mean? And then there have been those
Which is self-care sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But there have been whole weeks.
Yeah.
There have been whole weeks where it's just crummy weather. And I'm in a hotel room and I'm like, maybe one more season of Sopranos. And it's just like you get under the hotel bed and you're just like, what is wrong with me? And then you got to get up and, hi, how you doing? Like for an hour in front of people. And it's brutal. So I do TM. I try to do, you know, either exercise, get out, walk around, talk to people. If I have friends in the float tanks, like that's a thing. Before the pandemic, I would go any local place that had float tanks. I would go visit there and hang out there for a couple hours, and you know, because that's always a cool crowd. You know what I mean?
You had one for me to go to. I just didn't have time to.
Yeah. So like in New York City, there's great ones. DC, there's great ones. Like
there's some by where you live, Oteil. I'll put you in touch.
Oh, I go. I have a place, Flotation.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
I like them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're super cool. I haven't been in a while, but the kids keep me going here, you know. But yeah, I'm kind of the same. It's like I have this new thing that I do for my back by this professional wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page. And it's called DDPY, Diamond Dallas Page Yoga. And I do that. So it's isometrics, you know, dynamic resistance, and yoga. And if I do that, I drink enough water also. Like first thing in the morning, I get half my water for the day in and do that workout. And I notice that my brain is probably almost 70% better off just from that. And then, you know, like I gotten into practicing again, get outside, nature. Call my mom, FaceTime with the kids, like reach out to people. We had a great thing. We were stuck in the hotel for however many days off. I think it was 3 days off or something this time. And everybody's together by bus. So it's me and Derek Featherstone and Laura, the tour manager. Derek's the sound man, and Comenti. It's the four of us on a bus. And Jay Lane was on this time. So it was where I broke down in my oatmeal, and I was like, this year, I'm calling it ice cream party. So I was just like, there's an ice cream shop literally 100 yards from the bus that's open till 10. Let's have an ice cream party. And we ended up going down there and watching the original version of Star Wars that Jay Lane has, which is really cool. And doing dabs and eating ice cream. And it was really great. And I just thought this was such 180 degrees from what I did last time, you know, where I just broke.
Yeah.
It was just like, reach out, you know, like, come on, you know, Jay and Kameni were back there playing video games. And it just was like more of, I just flipped it. And a lot of it, I'm kind of glad we went through that, because it really put a microscope on everything that's wrong, that could be wrong with the road. And so I'm just like, okay, take that, and what's 180 degrees from that? Do that.
Yeah.
What you did this ice cream party. You did this, that. You did this, that, you know? And it's cool.
Yeah.
perspective changing, I think,
Yeah.
is what you're getting at, and that's the most important realization you can make as a person on this quest to being happy, is not is actually interpreting your reality and creating your reality out of that interpretation and whispering in its ear to make it a positive one, so that so that you are therefore pleased by the situation.
Because it's usually a misinterpretation, right? That we're operating from.
When we're living in this reactive state of situation response, situation reaction, it's impossible to see the larger picture. And when you change your mind, you change your world, and you might not be upset. You might not be pleased by the outcome of a scenario that's right in front of you, and not be able to see what it's setting you up for down the line. And I think whether or not any of that is true, if you can have a positive perspective and interpret the things in your life to therefore be positive, you're just going to have a better chance of being happy. And that's a really increasingly hard thing to do as a person. And everybody's guidebook kind of looks different in how to achieve that happiness.
I feel like mine is taking little bits here and there and pulling them together. You know, I mean, I have a good baseline happiness because I'm super blessed. But, you know, the pursuit of happiness is a weird mind game. And I find if I go, well, look, there's that little bit right there, and there's that little bit. And at the end of the day, I have a lot of little bits. I'm like, that's a meal right there. Like, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of how I take it now. Because, you know, life is always dealing you these situations. You have to be reactive.
Yeah.
But like you say, if you could zoom out, if you can change the perspective, because it does help. I do have situations now where I've even texted with a friend of mine where we're both being stymied. Like just lights, traffic, the airport, like just throughout the day, I'm like, I'm stymied here. I get here, I'm stymied there. I'm stymied here. I'm like, the moon isn't stymied. What? But I'm able to like zoom out and go, okay, so this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to learn from it? Now I'm not just even frustrated anymore because I've also added to it like, okay, what's going on?
Curiosity.
You know, like I'm better already in a way.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I've kind of tried to do as well, and I've thought about this a lot with sometimes it's not what you feel, it's what you don't. And I've been thinking about like if I'm feeling down or shitty, I go, well, at least I'm not still smoking cigarettes.
Yes,
like I used to go, you know, sit in a hotel room and, you know, just to get outside, I'd go downstairs and smoke, you know, half a pack during the day, just as a thing to do.
Totally.
Or I
to
go
kill time.
to kill time. Or I go like, well, at least I'm not hungover, because I used to drink a ton, and that, you know, come like you were talking before, like that coming off stage and getting right into a quiet hotel room. It's like you can't do that sometimes. So it's you go get hammered and pass out. So you're like, well, at least I'm not feeling that, or at least I'm not. So a lot of that helps too. When it's like that's kind of like that
what
last
I was talking
ditch.
about. Those
That's what
little
I mean.
Pieces.
Yeah.
It's like,
so sometimes
well, I'm not hungover.
yeah. So if you're not like, if you can't like in that moment, if you can't see the blessings, or if you can't feel the blessings, you could go, well, at least I'm not, you know, downstairs chain smoking, or at least I'm not, you know, hungover, you know, like reaching for the Advil or whatever.
Remember you would like totally willingly go out there and freeze your ass off in Vermont in February to get that cigarette. You know, like 5 below. You're like.
yeah, just to do it. And then you go, and then when you're putting it out, you go, let's see if I can make it 2 hours till I do this again. Like that was the interest that you make a deal with yourself that like, I'm going to come back out here. I'm going to get frostbite again, but let's see if I can make it till 5 o'clock. It's just so ridiculous.
That goes back to that gardening thing for me. It's like, you know, because those are all weeds that we pulled, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes, like with anything, like when I started juicing, like if I could rewind and tell myself that hadn't started juicing yet, like you're gonna drink one of these like every day, I'd be like, are you kidding? You know what I mean? But there was a point where it still doesn't taste great, but when my body smelled it, it went like this, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yeah.
And it was months into it, and I noticed my body have that reaction. I was like, oh, so you just are trained now to want to feel good. It's not about eating or drinking for the taste.
Mm.
And once we pull enough weeds in our life, and it's like we know what it's like to feel good, you start just like that ends up. It changes your. That's where the perspective change comes.
Yeah.
You just need that consistency.
Right.
To build up to that, you know.
And
it's
that's
war down here.
It's full on war. But that's exactly the lessons that I think people have been learning over the last 2 years. That is the reason they're not going to see every band that comes through town or whatever it is to be relevant in whatever you have to do to be relevant in the music industry. Your priorities are changing because you're not going to feel 100% if you're out till even 11 o'clock at night. I'm not feeling 100% the next day.
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Talk about whiplash. My kids go to bed at 8. I mean, we go.
Lucky.
My kids. We go to bed at 8. We force everyone to go. That's as much as we can take. You know, it's like, and then I get on the road and it's like, wham. Like with my band, it's wham. Now I have to just hard shift. Talk about whiplash, man.
Yeah,
and then shift back immediately when I get back home. But now I know, I'm not drinking. I'm not doing blow. I'm not doing blah, blah, blah. I'm not even staying up late unless I have to. And then I'm going to try to sleep late. You know, but man, this would have been bad if I was young, like in my 20s. My poor kids. Oh, God.
Well, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing for the scene, and it's awesome. So Backline is available to anybody in the music industry as well.
And their families.
Great. Yeah,
and their families. So that was a really important community for us to include in our services because everyone is affected by a parent that's on the road or a sibling or a spouse that's out there putting themselves out there. It affects everybody.
Yeah.
So it's important for our resources to really reach anyone from the main performer to the security and bus driver, anyone that's really affected by working these late hours and inconsistent schedules and not being supported with health insurance and just the people that are in it and making the music come to life.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Bless you guys.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Can you tell anybody where they can find out more about how to support or?
Totally. Backline.care is our website, and that is where you can go to find resources and also to find ways to support. So we're constantly fundraising to expand our services to reach people where they are in their journey. We've got an awesome staff of case managers who are fielding calls every day, but we could use more to be able to get on the phone with people even sooner and help them reach their destination.
Awesome.
You guys are rocking
so
too, man, because I remember seeing your stuff all over on Dead and Co tour. You know?
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, those are my peeps.
Yeah.
I got the new
Newport
T-shirt
Folk.
too.
Yeah. Met up with Zach and Hyam at Newport Folk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's now that we started in 2019, so our original plan was to be at music festivals and on tour with people. So that was quickly derailed, but at perfect timing for us to create products and programs fresh for people to receive in those scary 2 years. And now that we're back on the road, we're shifting to see how we can meet people out there. We've got care packages that we're launching in the fall. People can sign up to receive a take care package, and a lot of wellness products and gifts and just things to support you when you're on the road. Some extra tea and hand sanitizer.
Yes. Wet wipes. We're the wet wipe gypsies out here.
It's just a hug in a bag.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what we need. Just 2 arms come out of the bag and hug you.
Yes. Perfect. And some socks.
And some socks.
Get some socks.
Yes. For those cold cigarette mornings.
Yes, there you go. But we don't do those anymore.
No, you're right. Thank God. Thank you so much. This was awesome. It's really awesome
Kendall.
to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you both. Pleasure to be here. Love listening to you guys. And really, Mike, happy to finally connect with you. Oteil always talks so highly of you. And I'm just grateful that he has a friend like you to talk about the things that you guys get to talk about. Because I know he can go off. And it's great that he has a friendship where he can really do that.
She knows me.
Yeah. Well, I could go off too. So he
That's what I
figured. I'm gonna have to send this picture because I just saw it. That picture of you and Edwin McCain when we did Frog Wings. What were you? How old were you then? Like
6 years old. That was my first concert. Wow. Frog Wings who was in that band? It
was me and Derek, Jimmy Herring, Kofi, Mark Quinones, and Edwin McCain was the first singer, and the second one was John Popper.
Right,
and you were there at the beginning.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Sunfest in Florida in like 96. That was my first concert, followed by the Spice Girls.
See, if it was only reversed, how would your path have gone?
I don't know.
It never had a chance, man. Her uncle's Butch Trucks, like that's, it was only going to go one way.
Yes, fully.
Awesome.
I love it. But seeing that picture made me feel so good. It's like, wow. I mean, it also made me feel old. But yeah, we have a lot of history together. So it's so great to see you doing this now. And now you're married and everything. It's just beautiful. I feel old. Okay. And my birthday's tomorrow. I'm turning 58 tomorrow.
Nice.
Speaking of old. Yeah.
Come on.
That's not bad.
We told him
50
yesterday.
is the new 40.
Yeah, I agree.
And
with
somehow
that.
40 is the new 80. So it's like you kind of go backwards and Earth numbers don't matter anymore.
Kendall's 40 is not going to be the new 80 because she'll be doing that Kundalini 40 when you hit that a long time from now.
Yes. There's your physical age and your mental age.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And your spiritual age.
And your emotional age.
And your emotional age, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That guy's 200. So but.
I'm still trying to crank mine up from 17.
Yeah.
You're just stuck.
Yeah, negative 400. I think you're right. Yeah.
All right. We love you.
Thank you, Kendall. Hope to meet
Love
you
you
soon.
both.
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.